Hello there, welcome to the show. Today I'm going to talk about Inside The Manosphere, the new documentary on Louis Theroux, or newish. Like, as usual, I wait till something had its peak, and then I watch it, because I don't like watching something saying, oh, I need to watch it straight away because everyone else is watching it. I don't do things that way. I'm fairly stubborn. You know, I get into things and I want to get into things. I don't do it because it's the new big thing. So, this documentary caused some controversy for some people. Although, I've got to say, it's minor compared to what the Theroux documentary I covered last time, The Settlers, did. That was much more controversial. This one's controversial within a certain sphere of people who took themselves too seriously and are kind of absurd in lots of ways. So that's why it's a different type of different type of controversy. You have people who are concerned about the rise of what we call the manosphere, who said this documentary wasn't brutal enough on the subjects, when actually it kind of is, by letting them speak for themselves and letting them show their own absurdity. It's Theroux's a way of just letting people talk and let them talk and talk and talk and then quietly pointing out the absurdities of their actions. He builds up slowly, so you need some patience with his documentary because he kind of takes his time and he just lets people dig their own hole in a way that other documentaries are so sure of their own point of view that sometimes it becomes hectoring, which is a problem with some documentaries. Is like you do something, you watch them and think, all I'm hearing is your rant about this subject matter. I'm not sure if I trust your rant. And this one feels much more like I have an opinion, but I'll let them speak for themselves and you'll see what they are. And I'll just guide it quietly to show different sides of these people. And it's actually something it's about, because it's in Netflix, it's about introducing this concept to the wider audience. Because this did really well when it was released. And it showed people something they hadn't seen before. So a lot of the kind of reviews of it were like people who already knew about the manosphere, when the documentary itself was about introducing it to a wider audience of what's going on here and what your kids may be aware of. So the manosphere really began as it's something that's always existed. The kind of testosterone high, kind of right wingish, bodybuilding, build yourself up by bootstraps type of philosophy. It's you make it for yourself, and then you look after other people who are in your group, and the rest of the world can go to hell. Basically, is the philosophy. It's existed within humanity forever. Manosphere is just a new version of something that we've had in the past, we're going to have in the future. You're never going to burn it out. People are stupid. And this version of it was basically a reaction against what we used to call the SJWs. Or I didn't really call them that. It was something you noticed everyone was calling them. And because it was just like during the Obama administration, where the world had become a lot bit more tolerant, and you had gay rights and gay marriage and all these things passed, and your trans right issue coming up, and the left were pushing pretty hard in lots of ways, in a way that became censorious to people who didn't agree with them, and you could argue some things they said were wrong. A lot of people argued that they did some damage because they went too far into their own way of doing things, when in fact the real aim was tolerance. And some in the left were not very tolerant of other people's points of view. Even people who were what you call centrists, or even in their own party, who said, slow down a little bit. So there was that controversy. People were annoyed with these people. There was a general sense of this lot gone too far. And it's usually what any movement is, the people you hear from are the stupid ones. You don't hear from the kind of tolerant, normal people in any group. You always hear from the dumb ones who are wanting publicity and probably done the least amount of research. So that became a thing. You had a thing called the anti-SJWs, who released this online group who were criticising the left for these extremist lunatics who are trying to cancel everybody, and weren't targeting very well people who really deserved it. They would target anybody. And of course, the right wing, since this was their way of doing things, in the right, there's always a sense of, you go back to video nasties, a lot more panics. That's a right wing playbook, is to cancel people. But the left now started doing it to them, and they were not happy, so they jumped back. And the Manosphere grew out of that. This idea that something that was an actual social problem was that the boys were getting left behind in society. A lot of men were feeling like they were ignored, that everyone else but them were being listened to. It was a problem. The site had gone too far in one direction. I needed to come back to listen to everybody rather than just like people's, biases. Which in a normal society that would happen. Unfortunately, because, as I said before, you have the kind of the dummies who jump up and say, listen to me. You had the anti-SJWs who became the early building for the Manosphere. The Manosphere became this thing of coming out of the various people like Jordan Peterson and thought that, who were saying boys have to do certain things to actually improve themselves. And a lot of these boys listened to all of that and took it too far, and took it far into the kind of the old-fashioned testosterone misogyny level, which means we get the Manosphere, which was that's nickname for it. And it is absurd. It's an absurd thing. It's like men who are scared of women. Instead of fighting for the rights, it's all the women's fault, and it's all about pumping iron, being healthy, doing lots of stupid stuff to prove how macho you are. And it's a lot of young men who are very insecure. That's what just jumps out at you from this documentary. These guys are insecure. These guys really are insecure. They cannot handle women at all. Women have to be put in a place. They have to want marriage. And these guys cannot deal with the idea of a woman who's had a past. They find that any woman who's promiscuous is a whore, basically. And they find women who just want to be taken care of, and so they can say, see, all women want this. When it says, you've targeted a certain type of women, that's all you've done, and even they're getting fed up with you half the time. And it's this sense of this fear that's now been marketed to the masses, saying, look how much money I've got from living this lifestyle. Here I am in the sun. I'm doing all these fun stuff. I'm doing all these vlogs and all these videos that I've got uploaded all the time. And it becomes this industry of the Manosphere, which also has ties to investment industries. People are saying, make these investments, and to all these young men who will make the investments, and basically looks like most of the stuff's a Ponzi scheme. It's like you invest in something that's not really there, and the person getting the most of the money is the person suggested from the Manosphere, and the companies running the scams. And it becomes this industry of lies, and they can say, look how much money I've got because I've made all this money. And it's like, yes, money based on Ponzi schemes is the suggestion. And that's become the industry. I'm not specifying anyone out on any Manosphere channel or anyone from this one Louis Theroux video. I'm just saying that's the scheme of what's going on. So Theroux goes into the Manosphere and actually looks at some of the men involved, and you get a variety of them, and there's lots of like conspiracy theories. There's a kind of anti-Semitic undertone to some of them that's fairly alarming. There's a hatred of women that's very alarming. There's a suggestion that most of them are so into the tunnel of what they know, they're so scared of other opinions, the way like young men can be, where it's like, I understand the world, none of the rest understand the world, and it's like, no, that's a young person's point of view. You haven't been beat up by the world enough to know that you don't know enough. So it's a confidence of youth mixed with like people who are willing to exploit the gullibility of others who are looking for someone to show them some sort of way. And as Thoreau goes into the story of these young men who come into the manosphere, and also the men who kind of promote the manosphere, it's a lot of damaged people who have lots of difficulties in their lives, and there's a lot of compensation. And it becomes this story of letting them expose themselves quietly and slowly over time. And that's what the documentary does really well. It's really delivers on the sense of the absurdity of these people, the danger of these people. Really, is that they are dangerous people if you're not on the list of people they like, which is a very shallow, silly list based on fear, which, you know, look at some political parties that have that same thing of it's like this sense of, I don't understand the world, I'm going to simplify it to what I can feel comfortable with. So this is like an extreme version of what we're seeing with populism, really, is this idea that we only understand this world if we simplify it. If we simplify it to the things that we feel comfortable with. And if you're a very person who's uncomfortable in the world, it's going to be there's not going to be that much you feel comfortable with. And it just feels like people are delivering their psychoses to the world and saying this is a cure. The way it's happened in the past for thousands of years, like, I've got the miracle cure for life. No, you don't. But you're going to try and monetize it the same way other leaders try to make money off it and become political leaders and become like world leaders and scam everybody. It's an old system that the laws should actually be very careful about cutting down on, but because everything's become, you know, the worldwide, one place shuts them down, someone else will let them in, and it becomes this thing of the globalization makes it easier for them to move from country to country to try and avoid any problems with the law. And it just becomes this kind of virus that's infecting the youth. Now, luckily, a lot of people I think a lot of young people are actually like, this is stupid, this is embarrassing. I mean, the guy that all go behind Andrew Tate, who's had many legal troubles, they don't get him on this documentary. They tried, but he seemed to be smart enough to realise you do not want to go in a Louis Theroux documentary because you're going to get hammered. So Theroux gets a lot of people who think they can use him to say, oh, we owned Louis Theroux. He tried to see through us, but we loaned him. And they tried that during the time he was shooting documentary, but when the documentary came out, it was like, look at these idiots. Now, some of these people have not yet been exposed. They've had damage done to them because of the documentary, but they still have followings. And it's just it's one of those things you just hope people just kind of grow out of it, who are into this at the moment, just grow out and see, this is a bad idea. But who knows? I mean, least advice of populism. People like easy answers. People love easy answers. So these people proposing easy answers and saying, look at this get rich quick scheme. It's like, yeah, we've been warning about this for decades in the West, and everyone always falls for every single time because people live in lives a lot of the time that are miserable, that are deprived. So anyone saying, I've got an easy answer for you that will help you out of your troubles, rather than looking at why you've got some of these troubles and your past actions, is much more enticing than actually looking at yourself, like, critically. And so people fall for it all the time, and they're going to fall for it in the future. There's going to be a different version of it, you know. And it's just horrific, but that's human nature. All this shows you is human nature at its worst. Or at a low level at its worst. At its worst, you've got the stuff like the settlers or the stuff in Auschwitz. You know, the way people can really be when they go for nasty stuff. But this is like a low level of hell compared to that. But it's like it shows the building blocks to bad behaviour. It's not been clamped down on, and but the thing is, it's always hard to take seriously because these people, it does, when you watch them, it does feel like you're watching this Spinal Tap, because sometimes they are so stupid. And it's like, how can anyone take this seriously? What's going on? It's like, it seems like it's that thing is, even when I was young, I wouldn't have taken these idiots seriously. It's the kind of thing that when I was young, most of me and my friends would just laugh at, because it would be like, that kind of person is just obviously absurd. And now people are falling for it, and it's like, how far has our culture degraded that people are falling for this nonsense? But people always fall for this nonsense. But it's like, how much a percentage of the population falls for the nonsense is the big thing. There's always going to be some people who fall for it. But you hopefully it'll hit a level, and then it hits a ceiling, and then it just falls away again. That's the hope for this, but it seems to be expanding. So this documentary is just about that phenomena. And it's on Netflix. It's definitely worth seeing. It's not like the documentary some people wanted shown, saying these people are the worst people ever, blah blah blah. This was much more like, let them dig their own holes. So it's definitely worth watching. You will be frustrated by them though. I'm warning you, I had to turn it off after 5 minutes to start with, and then come back and it was fine. But I had to acclimatise myself to the stupidity of these people. It was very hard. Because they are very annoying, because they are very stupid. And it's like, the amazing thing is Theroux keeps a straight face through all of this. Some of the absurdity that people are spouting, and some of the ways that human beings can twist what they want into some sort of declaration of, I'm a moral person, when it's like, you're doing everything that's not justified in society, and you're trying to say you're a moral person when you're not. You're actually just trying to justify your bad behaviour. That's what comes across in all of this video, all these content creators. They are justifying like bad behaviour to themselves and to their fans. And it's like, they're trying to say like, none of this counts, this is just us being us. It's like, no, it does count, it's bad behaviour. So anyway, that's me for now on Inside the Manosphere. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you go and watch the film on Netflix, because it is definitely worth your time. So I'll see you all later. Bye for now.